This might be the best value mid-range carbon road bike you can buy in 2025. But there's a catch, which I'll share in today's review of the bike. So this is the Boardman SLR, the company's flagship road bike, launched earlier this year. An update on the bike has been around for quite a few years, but this is a very special and very limited edition bike to mark the unveiling of the brand new SRAM Rival AXS group set, generation 2 of the third tier wireless electronic disc brake group set, with an amazing paint finish that I think looks fantastic, a one-piece Vision Metron handlebar and Boardman's own wheels and Goodyear tyres. I've been riding it for the last few weeks, primarily to assess the new SRAM Rival group set, but also share my experience of riding this bike as well. So the group set is a big story here. The reason for this amazingly painted bike, you've got red, you've got Force, and then Rival. All the same fundamental technology and all the improvements we saw on red a year ago and now Force as well. But this is a group set to choose if you want the best performance and you're on a budget and you don't care about weight. It offers all the performance you really need. And I've been riding in the previous generation Rival on my giant TCR for the last 4 years since it launched, with no complaints or issues at all. But the question I want to answer today is this new group set worth me upgrading, and how does it compare to 105 Di2, the other third tier electronic group set that is about the same price? So the group set on its own retails, or starts from £1,400 with no power meter option, which is about £300 cheaper than the retail price of 105 Di2, not the discounted high street prices, the recommended retail prices. But most people buying Rival won't buy a group set, you buy a complete bike, and that's where Boardman gets really interesting and very exciting, because this bike will retail later this summer when it's available for £3,100, £3,100. All this performance, all this bike is pretty amazing. And to put that price in context, a giant TCR with the old Rival or 105 Di2 is about £400 more. So Boardman have done a cracking job on hitting this price point, and hence why the bike will sell out straight away. It'll sell out within hours, I imagine. So once it's gone, it's gone. I'm sure the company will do a stock Rival build in the SLR range in the longer term as well, after this limited edition has sold out. After riding this bike for the last few weeks, I think the biggest reason I would upgrade to a new group set would be the hood. As I mentioned in my coverage of the red and Force group sets, the hoods are a massive ergonomic leap forward over the old Rival hoods, which were quite clunky and chunky, and I think are as good as, and maybe even better than 105. It's a bit longer, it's quite narrow, and just fits your hand really well. Plenty of space, plenty of real estate to fit your hands on there, and just a nice place to rest your palm. And on longer rides I've been doing, the comfort is fantastic. And this bit is nice and rounded, so your hands do fit really well. And as you can see, I've got 3 fingers between the brake lever and the bar, and when I pull the brake lever, those fingers aren't pinched. Do that on 105 Di2 and those fingers will be squeezed by a brake lever. So that's a really nice detail, that extra space between the brake lever and the handlebar. And then to the brakes themselves, if you've not tried the new SRAM yet, go to your nearest bike shop, grab on the new bikes with SRAM and just pull the brake levers and see what you think, and then let me know in the comment section below. Because the lightness of the action is mind-blowing. It's exceptionally good, both when you're static with the bike, but also when you're riding the bike, you're bombing down the hills, just feels incredible. But then a reason to perhaps not upgrade are the cranks, which now have a hole in the crank arm, and I can't decide if I like it or hate it. I've only had the bike for a few weeks and not had time to grow on me. Part of me likes it, part of me doesn't. Bit of Swiss cheese look about it. So the whole group set is lighter than the old group set, and the cranks have been improved to be lighter and stiffer. So we have the hole in the crank arm to save weight, but also the chain rings are now, 2 chain rings here are one piece, and they thread onto the crank arms, and that's designed to save weight and improve stiffness. I'll tell you if I can detect that later in the ride section of today's video. But it does mean if you wear out the big ring or the small ring, you have to replace both but the prices are about 120 quid for a whole new chain ring combo. So not crazy expensive, not compared to SRAM Red at least. But do let me know your experience of wearing out chain rings, big rings, little rings, and replacing one or both or the other. So yeah, that's a long-term question to be answered. So yeah, I'm not really sure if the improvements are worth the compromise in terms of replacing the whole lot. And then the looks of the crank arms, of course. The front derailleur has some improvements from Red with a stiffer, narrow cage, improved shifting. There's now auto trim adjustment, but the battery replacement's the same. Battery technology is all the same as well as we're used to. I throw it on the floor there. And then the gear ratios are the same as before, and the gear ratios are something I really enjoy about SRAM group sets generally, and especially Rival. So on this bike, I have a 48-35 chain set and a 10-36 on the back. And that means steep climbs, big climbs, mountain epics are much easier to get up and conquer and tackle with the gear ranges compared to what you might get on a Shimano or Campac bike. So I'm glad that SRAM haven't abandoned that gear ratio approach and have stuck with it. Luckily, when you're actually riding a bike, you can't see the hole in the cranks, so it's all good. And the biggest difference, the biggest improvement when actually riding a bike, as I am right now, are the hoods. The shape of the hoods, the ergonomics, so much better than old Rival, and I think better, in my opinion, than the 105 Di2. Really nice shape in the hands. My hand fits around the hoods really nicely. A long, slender, narrow shape, rounded knob, no sniggering at the back. I just feel fantastic. The same as Red and the same as Force. So that is the biggest difference, the biggest improvement and the biggest upgrade over Rival, and I think perhaps a single reason to buy this group set over 105 Di2 if you're on a fence between the two third tier electronic group sets. Really, really nice. And then the brakes themselves, super light lever action. You've heard all about this from my content on Red. One finger braking, descending, cornering, super easy. Really easy modulation of the power available as well, and they are powerful brakes too. But I do have to admit, I really miss the bonus buttons from Force and Red, but 105 Di2 doesn't have them either, so that's a fair comparison. So shifting speed, and compared to my old giant TCR with the first generation Rival group set on, the other day I dragged both bikes out on my test track, and the shift speed is, yeah, it's about the same. In the real world, when you're out riding with your mates or enjoying the view, as I am today, the shift speed is the same. And it's quick, it's not slow at all. You press a button, it changes gear. But I do think 105 Di2 still has the edge in outright shift speed, especially in the work stand. But when you're just generally riding around, it doesn't really make much of a difference at all. It's not slow at all. It's still press a button, change your gear. What I do appreciate though is the auto trim on the front derailleur, which the first generation Rival didn't have and should have had. Not a deal breaker. Riding my old giant TCR is not a big issue at all, but definitely nice to have, a nice improvement to have. And what about the bike the group set is attached to? Well, as I said in my review of the SLR when it first launched a couple of months ago, links to our review down below, it's a bike I really like. And not just for the price, but for the price it's fantastic. The level of performance you get these days from a brand like Boardman, just fantastic. And there's no corner cutting either. And this special edition bike has some nice parts. The Vision one-piece cockpit is a very snazzy carbon handlebar with a nice shape, the swept forward design. The one I tested had a two-piece handlebar, which is easy to change the stem length and the handlebar width. So again, any issues with fits here, you might have to change that in the bike shop. But as a rider measuring 181 centimeters tall and riding a size medium, this handlebar fits me really well. I'm very lucky in the way that most test bikes fits me pretty well. It definitely rides in a way you'd expect a carbon fibre road bike, race bike to ride in 2025. That's to say, it's very fast, very immediate, very responsive, and comfort is pretty good as well. The bike definitely leans on the 30mm wide tyre fitted for most of the comfort. We have quite an oversized aero-shaped seat post that doesn't flex as much as a skinnier seat post that we are starting to see on other top-end race bikes to save weight and bring more compliance to the ride experience, but it's not uncomfortable. The bike isn't the lightest in the world, measuring 8.2 kilos on my scales, but for the price I think that's really good. And no, top-end bike these days is 7 kilos. Going sub 7 kilos you have to spend 10k, so 3 times what a bike costs, and I still have inner tubes. So for my next video I'll drop the inner tubes and go tubeless and see how much weight we can save on the bike. So very much first impressions on the bike and the group set. The aim is to ride this bike in the long term and give a long-term update and review of the group set. And to answer my question of whether the new group set is worth upgrading to, yes and no. For me, I think the hoods and the brakes are a success and worth upgrading my old bike to, which I can do because it's all backwards compatible, thankfully. But as to rush out and buying a whole new group set and the crank arm with a hole in it, I'm not so sure. And as for how Rival compares to 105 Di2, I'll wait until I've logged more miles on a new group set and I'll do a more detailed head-to-head comparison shootout between this and 105 Di2. So stay tuned for that by subscribing to the channel, hitting the link down below, as I'm being attacked by flies. And the catch I mentioned earlier, you can only buy the Boardman in the UK. They're not available internationally. So if you're watching in the US, Australia, you sadly can't buy this bike, but maybe an excuse for a holiday to the Cotswolds to come and buy this bike yourself and ship it home with you, perhaps.